What is going on, boys and girls? Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. It's your boy Armando. Great episode. I can already tell this is going to be a great episode just from my conversations pre-recording with my next guest, which, like, I should mention, I should apologize, and I already did apologize to my next guest. It's Jordan Marshall. He won AOY for the Hobie B.O.S 2021 season. And I feel like he's been disrespected so much. And, he made it to the Hobie Worlds as well. He won the Tennessee Bass Championship just a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago. And I feel like I should have had him on this podcast a long, long time ago. He's probably the most unappreciated, most underrated angler out there. I mean, even more than Eric Siddiqui, which I always thought Eric Siddiqui was really underrated. I think he's a great angler, and I don't think he gets as much of the props as he should get. But Jordan Marshall even more. And we were just talking about that in pre-recording, and I love his candid opinion on things, and definitely has a chip on his shoulder, and I totally understand that. I mean, if you don't know who Jordan Marshall is, you really should get to know this guy because he is a great angler. I mean, what he accomplished last year and what he's doing this year, both on the Bass Nation and the Hobie B.O.S. Bass Nation Kayak Series. They keep changing the name. So super excited to have him on. Before we bring him on, kind of like talk a little bit about my weekend. Let's see. I am pre-fishing for the Lone Star Throwdown, biggest tournament in Texas. I went to Steelhouse Lake. The tournament is going to be held at both Steelhouse Lake and Belton Lake. So it's going to be conjunction, those two. And both lakes are like the water level has dropped like 10 feet. Steelhouse is a lake that's famous for its water clarity. I went upriver and the water clarity was crap. It was horrible pre-fishing. I can't remember the last time I got skunk after fishing 8 hours, but yeah, it just happened last week. So I'm going Friday to pre-fish again. This time I'll go to Lake Belton and I'll see what happens. But anyways, that is going to be all in the past by the time you get to listen to this, because this episode is going to come out Tuesday. And I mentioned that because this is kind of like the frustrating part of doing the podcast. Like, I want to make sure we get episodes out and, I don't get last minute cancellations and end up not having to record an episode. But at the same time, stuff happens that by the time I put this goes on air, it's going to be irrelevant, such as the case with the now infamous walleye tournament that I guess people has stuffed lead weights on a 5 limit. I don't know much about walleye tournaments, but anyways, they stuffed like 8 pounds worth out of lead weights into this walleye to win a tournament. I think it made it all the way to CNN. I was web browsing on the computer and I noticed it's like, this made it all the way to CNN. That's how this thing caught fire, which caught me thinking, like, in a good way. It's nice to make this jerks, a-holes, whatever you want to call it, D-bags, famous for being cheaters, but at the same time, it kind of like brings negative publicity to the sport, even though that's more of a boat tournament, not a kayak tournament, but it's still a fishing tournament. So anyways, you're probably thinking, yeah, that's last week's news. It is. Just be aware that I'm recording a week prior. But anyways, that's here what is the expression? That is here neither here or there. That's the expression I was looking for. So sorry about that. So that's it. We're gonna bring our next guest in just a couple of seconds. Before we do that, big thank you to my sponsor. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out the full lineup of LRS, X Matrix, and award-winning fly fishing rods. douglasoutdoors.com. So thank you, Douglas, for sponsoring the podcast. Quick waypoints commercial, and we'll bring Jordan Marshall right in. Mr. Jordan Marshall, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Thank you so much. Like I mentioned in the intro, and we talked in the pre-recording. I feel like I've disrespected you by not bringing you. Not that my podcast is the official authority in kayak fishing. I'm sure KBN is a lot more holds that title, or it's a lot more popular than this. But still, I feel like I should have brought you in long time ago, man. So.
Well, I won't hold that against you. I'm just I'm glad to get on any podcast and talk fishing and hang out, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what I enjoy. That's what I enjoy talking about. So I'm just happy to be here.
Well, we all enjoy talking about kayak fishing and listening to you talk about kayak fishing. I've got to listen to you in the last KBN podcast. Well, the last one that I heard, which was your Tennessee Bass Championship. Congratulations to that! Another kind of trophy to add to your cabinet. So.
Yeah, I've got to start doing something with those at this point. I basically got a corner in my bedroom where I just have sat everything down, and I have all my Happy Gilmore checks leaned up against the wall, and I've got a whole cardboard box full of plaques, and I've got to do something with them, because I feel like it's I'm disrespecting part of them when I've won, because I don't have them. I don't have them on display, and people give me a hard time. They come over and see what's going on. They're just, most of them are all just sitting in the floor. So,
hey, I was just about to give you a hard time that I don't see them on the background. I'm expecting to see this plethora of trophies
no,
and.
this is what some people referred to as the tackle barn. I had an ex-girlfriend refer to this as the murder shed.
Murder shed.
Yeah,
Why?
it's a mess. I actually, right here below me, strangely enough, I don't think you can see it anymore because it's finally faded away. But I spilled a dye, red dye, like you
Like the
would,
spike it?
yeah, spike it. So I knocked over red dye off this countertop right here, and it fell on the floor. So I had this giant red stain in the floor. So,
Was it the scented one too? Or
oh
the
yeah,
unscented one?
it smelled absolutely terrible for a
Oh
long
yeah.
time. It's this, it's just, this is a little 10 by 20 building that's in between my mama and papa's house and my parents' house, and it's just kind of out here hanging out. It's completely out of place. It doesn't match anything. It's completely full to the brim of fishing stuff, and collectible fishing stuff. I've got a whole box here. If you can probably see them. I don't know if you do video or not, but these are
Yeah, we
all
do.
DP flats. They don't make them anymore. They're like,
Yes.
30. They're all $30 a piece, pretty much. I've got, all sorts of them, and I've got all my pile of collectibles and different collectibles that I've got. I've got wiggle warts and a bunch of custom painted speed traps and everything else. It's a complete mess, but it's my mess. So that's,
It's
this
a
is my
beautiful
hang.
mess just
Oh
by
yeah,
looking at it.
completely beautiful, scary, treble hook filled mess.
You know what's interesting? This is really off topic, and I did not expect to go into this, but speaking of a garage, I live in like a townhome section, right? And one of my neighbors that just moved in. So the landlord is this guy who's totally responsible. That apartment is a mess, and it's such a big mess that he can't get anybody to rent it. So the rent that he puts on it's so low that we get some really like shady people moving in and out of those apartments, and even those can't pay it. So lately they got a guy, and the guy, I've met him, I've talked to him, I don't judge, but I get to talk to him when I'm outside on my garage, and the guy, he's really battling his demons. His girlfriend is, I mean, it's just a mess, and I keep telling my wife, like, I don't judge, but they're like, we're talking about meth addicts, and it's like this guy's, he's nice, but he has his demons. So the other
Right.
day they left the garage door open, and I looked at it, it's like, man, those are for somebody who's a meth addict. He has some two nice pickups in that garage. And I told my wife, she's like, I don't know, I think those pickups might be stolen or something, because it doesn't add up. Like his car is a jacked up, I can't even tell what brand of pickup is because it doesn't have a front fender. It doesn't even have the grill up front. It just has the radiator. There's no logo on it. His girlfriend has some type of like minivan, not even a minivan, like a little sport SUV that from the late 90s. I don't know. It's a mess. So the other day he has 2 pit bulls and he had them in the garage and then just locked up in the garage. And neighbor complained. So they came over last night at 2 a.m. The cops did at 2 a.m. trying to see what was going on. They knocked on their door, they didn't open, so they forced open the garage. Turns out those 2 pickup cars that I told my wife that I thought they were stolen. So I called it. I was like, man, I should be a detective or something. The 2 pit bulls that they had, they maced the pit bulls. One of them ran away, and I don't know what happened to the other one. And then when I'm coming in this morning, I got up early, went to do some stuff. When I went back in, I was with my wife, and she's like, I can't get into the house. I'm like, why not? This is the huge pit bull in front of the house. Or where we have access to our door. It's in front of the neighbor's door, but he's growling at me. It was the pit bull that they mazed last night. People ran away, came back. It was scared. It was growling, and it's a big pit bull. So I had to call the police. The police came and got the pit bull again. So it's a mess, man. So I don't know why I went that rabbit hole. But when we started talking about garage, I'm like, I have to bring that story up, man.
That's a good one right there.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I don't know. I hope the guy sells that apartment or fix it or something or puts a higher rent. I don't know. Anyways, crazy stuff. For all those out there listening, be careful, man. Everybody, just be careful. You never know. Crazy world. So, man, congratulations, first of all, on the 2021 AOY. Long overdue. I mean, this 2022 season is kind of like almost done. So
yeah,
really late.
One more event.
Yeah. One more event. You qualified for the TOC. You would have qualified regardless in the point system.
Yeah.
But that secured your spot anyways, right?
Yeah, I would have been fine on points. Like we kind of talked beforehand, I really wanted to, compete for AOY, and I knew to have a shot at that after kind of a disappointing Wisconsin event. That I was going to have to go to Dardanelle and just kind of see what happened. I had like a 45th at Wisconsin with 9 fish, one more fish that I lost a couple fish on Saturday, and either one of those fish would have put me in the top 10 for that event. So I really was wanting to go to Dardanelle and just get a top 10 and kind of redeem that trip to Wisconsin and, go to Dardanelle and get on some fish and finished 3rd, which I was super grateful for. My best during regular season finish in a Hobie. Really felt like that was probably the best chance I ever had at winning, or should I say have had so far at winning a Hobie. I just made bad decisions on day one, and there were a lot more fish there than what I realized, but. Hindsight's obviously 2020, but got a solid finish. Got my auto in for Dardanelle, going into the TOC in 8th, and Angler of the Year. So really looking forward to try to climb my way up into that top 3 so I can get a Worlds qualification again, because that's after going to Worlds this past year, that's the goal now every year is to qualify for Worlds. It's not necessarily winning AOY. I know that's statistically nearly impossible to do that with so many great anglers we have, or really at any level to win back-to-back Angler of the Years, especially spread out through all over the country the way we fish. And but it's qualify for top 3 or win the TOC. So that's my goal every year from now on is qualify for Worlds, and whatever happens along the way just happens.
Yeah, and you're in 8th place, so you're in the same spot you were last year. And yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't know that. You just told me that on the pre-recording. I'm not gonna pretend I'm this knowledgeable on it.
I'd have complimented you.
Yeah, but I think, and I don't know, I wish I probably should have researched this more, but I think they give more weight to the season now than like this year than they did compared to last season or something like that, right?
To my knowledge, they instead of counting the TOC for double, it's now just another single tournament.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought.
To my best of my knowledge, that's how it was adjusted. Um, I'll figure out where the points are when we get there. I just want to go and catch some fish and figure out what happens after that.
And again, I wanted to touch on something because I feel, and I kind of said it on the pre-recording, but I wanted to touch base. I wanted to talk to you about this and get your insight from it. But because I really feel like you were unfairly treated last year after you won the Angler of the Year. And I personally got a little bit upset about it, even though I hadn't met you personally. And my thought on it was there was a lot of talk. I was like, oh, he came out of nowhere. Um, you and Minor had a better season. They put too much, which again, no, I don't, no disrespect to you and Minor. He did had a great season.
Right.
Like the kid has proven himself. Like when he won, and I said this on that my last podcast, or the one that I had, Fred Rambonis and Jackson Rambonis. Like when he won, he got, I think, second place. I really thought like I like on a barrel kayak, and he'd never kayak fish on a tournament before. I feel like and his home lake. I was like, I would like to see this kid keep doing this. Talking about you and Minor before we start giving him the one of the best accolades. Sure enough, he's done that. Like he's grown past that. Like he deserves all the accolades that he's gotten.
Yeah.
But I felt like
fantastic. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And Ewing's one of my good friends. I talk to him nearly every day. Ewing's an unbelievable angler. So that's
So going back to that, I felt like I just felt like you were disrespected and treated unfairly. The year before that, and if I got this wrong, anybody, you or anybody that's hearing or watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can comment on the comments field. But the year before that was Drew Gregory. Drew Gregory had entered into 3 events prior to that, qualified for the TOC, and I think he was further back than you were, and he won the TOC. Russ Snyder really struggled. Russ Snyder was like kind of like had that position on lockdown, if I remember correctly. And then Drew Gregory had a great TOC, ended up winning it, which, by the way, that back then, I think there was only 2 days. Yours was 3-day tournament, right?
Yeah, correct. Drew, I think, was 3rd in AOY going to the TOC that was in Knoxville. Yeah, and I think he finished 9th, 8th or 9th, give or take, in Knoxville to get his AOY.
Exactly. So my thought is like, I didn't hear anybody complain with Drew wanting it, because I get it. Drew is one of the best, if not the best at it. So for you to be treated like this way, just because you're not as famous as Drew or other kayak anglers, I really thought it was unfair. How did you felt, after the dust had settled and you hear the comments and I know you've heard them, how did you feel about it?
So they were, obviously I heard everything. As being a young guy, I'm on social media a fair amount and see a lot of things. I'm a moderator for a few of the pages where a lot of that stuff was going on. And they were, I understand some aspects of those conversations. There were some that bothered me, some that did not bother me. The ones that really didn't bother me were the ones that were, hey, the TOC's waited too much. Somebody came from 8th to win AOY. My response to that is, I understand. I understand you put some thought into this. I respect that. But at the end of the day, everybody had the same chance. Everybody had the same. Going into it. It's not my fault that some people tend to struggle every year at the TOC. Those names will be left unmentioned, but you can
I can look it up. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, y'all can look it up. There's, I make jokes about that, but there's some names that are consistent in the TOC. I fished 3 TOCs and I've got a 5th, a 2nd, and a 2nd. My average finish is 3rd. I don't think there's anyone that's probably even close to that, if we're being quite honest. And some people, finish in the bottom 10, a couple of if not all 3 of the years. And, when it comes time to, do things, clutch. And people talk about that in basketball and football. It's you got to be clutch. I feel like that time of year, and that sets up for my strengths. And I like being motivated when I go fish. There's nothing more that I love than some friendly trash talk beforehand. And y'all probably seen that. I like to get into it when I'm on social media. But some stuff bothered me, some stuff didn't. The one that frustrated me, the one that actually I would read and get, I would either A, put my phone down, or B, text one of the boys and be like, "Did you see this?" The ones that bothered me were the ones that were, Jordan came from nowhere to win AOY. And depending on how you want to read that, it really bothered me. And I understand that a lot of guys didn't put me in the same kind of tier. Even even literally with the fantasy fishing thing, it wasn't kind of a top tier deal the first year. And I just use that stuff as motivation. And I understand people don't put me in that same group as Jody and Russ and Drew Gregory and all those guys. But at the end of the day, Drew's got an AOY and I've got an AOY, and we're kind of doing our own thing in that aspect, if you want to use that comparison. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm the best kayak angler that shows up every weekend of a tournament that I'm at. So that's kind of the mindset that I have to have and do have. That's just the way I was raised. I'm super, super competitive. And, if I show up at a tournament, I'm there to win. That's just my mindset. I'm there to win and be the best angler that's there every single weekend that I show up to a tournament. And that's, that can be, not necessarily mind altering, but it can be a hindrance at times when you start off bad on the first day of a tournament.
Yeah.
When you're going to win, that's, my goal every time. And sometimes I have to kind of pace myself and kind of work on making realistic expectations. But at the end of the day, I'm super competitive, and that's my goal, is to win. And one of my big things with trying to silence all that stuff from Angler of the Year last year was come in this year and be competitive in Angler of the Year. And even the year before I won Angler of the Year, I finished third in the AOY.
Yeah.
So I would be interested to see what the AOY, like if you did an AOY points the year before that, when the TOC was in Arkansas, because that year I had 3 8th place finishes during the season and a 5th place in the TOC. And, I don't know what the numbers are for that, but I guarantee you I was probably in the top 3 of that season too, if not top 5. I've never done the math. That's, it doesn't really make any difference. Just like this year, I'm not trying to figure out what I have to do and how many spots I've got to beat people. I don't know what the points even are for TOC. I'm just going to go fish as hard as I can, try to win the TOC. And if I don't win the TOC to qualify for Worlds, then, we'll see where we're at in points. So I try not to get too hung up on it, but at the end of the day, I'm super competitive. So I'm just going to go win and figure out what happens after that.
Would you say that, coming into this year and feeling like I mentioned in the pre-recording, you definitely have a chip on your shoulder and you feel like you need to prove it, versus 2021, where I guess you weren't on, like you mentioned, you weren't on anybody's radar as far as winning the AOY. So really there was no pressure on you. Now that not only did you win, but there were so many people questioning the point system and unfairly and disrespecting your name. Did that ever took a toll on you? Did that make you a better angler, or did that pressure you in ways that made you not fish as good as you would have liked?
I think the first few events, I overthunk things a little too much in practice. And historically, if you ask any of the guys that I fish with, Matt Millard, Eric Thomason especially, I've stayed with him all over the country at this point. If we have practice somewhere, if you ask those guys, and even Daniel Lyons too, I forgot to mention him. If you ask any of those guys who wins practice most of the time and who loses practice most of the time, I will lose practice every single time. I, the Toledo Bend event, we were there for a week after Fork and Toledo Bend. We were there for a week, and I caught 2 fish in practice in a week.
Really?
I couldn't catch a fish to save my life.
That would have made me jump out of the bridge. I swear to God.
What'd you say?
Damn, 2 weeks. I would have jumped out of the bridge by by Friday.
Oh yeah, and what's crazy is I did not get my bites until Friday, an hour before we
Oh,
were
that's
supposed to
gonna
be
be
on.
crushing.
And I was losing my mind because I could not for the life of me figure out what I needed to do. And I just scrapped everything I had everywhere I went. I was places where there were guys catching fish and could not figure it out. And even guys within our house that were like, hey, I've caught some smaller fish doing this. You can try this. I would go out and do that the next day and could not get a bite. And like I said, I feel like when I go somewhere, I'm a top tier angler. I'm going to win. I'm going to attempt to win. That's my aspect. That's my thought process going in is confidence and doing all that. So it is absolutely just deteriorating to your thought process
Yeah.
when practice goes that poorly. So like I do a lot, I said, okay, I'm going to go to whatever looks like it's just not conducive, where it looks like I would not fish. I'm going to go to something completely different. And I found a spot, literally just scanning through maps, looking at Navionics, looking at Google Maps, looking at Apple Maps, just trying to compare different things, different water levels. And I found an interesting spot, and it was 2 miles pedal one way. I had never been there. I went there. I caught 5 fish in 2 hours on Saturday morning. And I was excited. I was like, man, I'm catching fish on a spinnerbait in February in some dirty water. This is great. I was really happy. I was like, it's a small limit, but it's probably pretty good. It's been tough. It was tough for the guys in our house more times than it wasn't. I zeroed basically the entire week, so I was happy with having 5 by 10 o'clock, and then I posted my fish up and was like, okay, people are catching them. This is I just straight up miss the boat. I missed the market at Toledo Bend or whatever. Our first yeah, it was at Toledo Bend, our first Hobie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always get all the Texas lakes confused. But you know, it really bothered me because it was like, normally if I can find fish, I can find the right size of the fish.
Yeah.
It's the way I kind of cover water and just the way that I like fishing. I tend to find, the quality fish needed to be consistent. And after that first day, I was ready to go home. And I was so tore up. I didn't have a good event at Fork with the Bass Master the week before, which most people didn't because
No, that was tough.
it was the Ice Bowl. And I didn't get a bite there. I went to Toledo Bend. I couldn't get a bite. I got so frustrated practicing for Toledo Bend on Wednesday. I actually went to a different lake and wrecked them. And when I mean wrecked them, I caught probably 30 fish on a different lake because I didn't know whether it was a mental block. There's another lake in Texas that I like to fish that's kind of between Toledo Bend and Fork, and I went and fished it and was like, dude, this is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I can catch fish here and it doesn't translate to this other lake, and I was out of sorts. And the first thing I think of when that kind of happens is um you start thinking about what other people have said with, hey, should I have done this? Should I have done that? Should Jordan have won this? And I had a rocky start to the first part of the season, and I have to keep in my mind knowing going into a year, it's if I can pick up an early tournament that I have a good finish on, that's just a bonus, because my prime season, if you look historically year after year after year, once it gets into May and June is when I start actually, doing well. Once the bite gets a little tougher and the water warms up, and I can, kind of present more bluegill presentations to fish that are bluegill eaters, just because I understand how fish set up that want to eat bluegill, and kind of do that program versus fish that are setting up to spawn. That's a lot more confusing to me for some reason, to get on those fish, especially when they're on bed and you're fishing slow. That's just not my style.
Yeah, and that's speaking a little bit about that. That's current leader, I think, for the Hobie B.O.S is Cody Milton, and he just loves. I mean, I think he's bed fishing spawning bass. He's the best. There's nobody even. I don't
Yeah,
think it's anybody even close to
yeah,
him. To he's amazing at it. And he touched on it on himself on the KBM podcast. Talking about him leading or being in the hunt for AOY for 3 different tournaments. It just happens that those tournaments, each tournament was loaded with the windows where they were still spawning by the time the tournament rolled around, and it really worked out for him. Um, but yeah, no, it's Toledo Bend and Bass Nation Kayak Series on Fork was 2 of the craziest event I've seen. On the one hand, Bassmaster Kayak Series, if you skunk on Lake Fork on the first day, but you caught 5 fish on the second day, you still could catch a check. If I remember correctly, I think the last 3 to catch a check, and I know Bassmaster Kayak Series, their check is like 20% of the field. It's like more than Hobie. I know that for a fact.
yeah.
But regardless, for you to be able to, I think I think I can't remember, but I think the last 3 skunked on that catch a check skunk on day 1 and actually caught a nice limit on day 2, which was crazy. And then you Toledo Bend, which is a nearby lake from Lake Fork, just a couple of hours. Um, Completely different scenario. Like the first day was windiest I've ever seen on a tournament. That was 30-mile-per-hour winds. I know my good buddy Brandon Mays, that bass fishing dude, man, and that guy, he flipped his kayak, and thankfully he was on shallow water because that was a mess for him.
Yeah, that was a dangerous event for
Yeah,
sure.
that was. And then the next day, it was freezing temperatures in the morning. So it went from cloudy and windy, 40 degrees to like 50 or 60 degrees to like 30 degrees on Sunday, and then super sunny, like not a cloud in the sky, and they warmed up quickly. And
Yeah,
to me, I've said it before, that's one of the best performance I've seen on a tournament. Just Rolando Nandin getting the biggest bag on day 1, completely changing his strategy overnight and going to a different lake with a different strategy and getting the biggest bag on day 2. I was like, holy crap! I don't know, and I know maybe 1 or 2 other anglers can pull off something like that.
yeah.
Adapt to that. That's crazy. But I mean, Jordan, when I've looked at what you've been doing, and what you've done this year to kind of bounce back, where do you think it kind of like clicked for you, as far as like, okay, I'm just gonna relax and fish and just tune out the noise of what happened last year and get back on track? Was there any point, it was just gradually that
So
happened?
most of the part, it was very gradual. The biggest kind of turning point in my season, was going and fishing Santee Cooper, which I do not like. I don't like Santee Cooper. I don't understand it very well. When I was, I think 16 or maybe 18, my dad bought me a guide for Santee Cooper, and we went down there. Just, we heard it was a good lake. We went for Santee Cooper in March, and we go down there, and me and my dad did not get a single fish all day, and the guide caught 2 fish, maybe 3 fish, and they were small. And I was like, I don't particularly like this place. I decided when I was starting to fish tournaments, I went to the KBF Open, and fished it in my little Pelican when I was getting started, and it was windy, and I got blown all over the place. I ripped my pants out, and I caught like 2 fish in 2 days. And I was like, man, I ain't never coming back here. And I went down there for for the Hobie this year, I guess is the first time I went back since, and practiced for 2-3 days maybe. Terrible practice. Just caught. I don't know if I caught a single fish in practice in 2 days. But every single place I went and saw any kayak anglers, I saw kayak anglers with these giant, well, not giant, these just glowing orange or white trick worms everywhere I went. People were throwing bright colored trick worms, bubble gum, orange, white, yellow. So I saw there was a group of South Carolina locals that were staying in this cabin, and they all had orange trick worms of different colors, but basically orange. So I went, drove to a tackle shop, found some that had bright orange trick worms. Went to the swamp. I was like, if I'm going to Santee Cooper, I'm going to go to the swamp, which is the Santee Cooper place on the Santee Cooper system. And
I like that.
I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to get lost in this cypress, and I'm just going to throw an orange worm. And I think my second cast, I caught a solid fish. In my third cast, I caught a solid fish. In my fifth cast, I caught a reasonable fish. And here it was 10 minutes in. I hadn't had a bite in practice, and I had 3 fish in the first 15 minutes of fishing. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, I might get down with this. And there were probably 20 people at our ramp that morning, and me and Drew Gregory were the only 2 people that had a limit from that spot. Because it was tough. I mean, there was nothing easy about it, even though it started off really easy. Day 2, completely new area, which, you know, I hadn't even been to that swamp we had went to. Didn't fish there in practice. Me, you know, none of us had in our house. Just decided to go. Next day, went to a completely different spot. Showed up. There was a bunch of people there. Left. Went somewhere else. Hadn't even seen. Showed up, and there was nothing but locals there. I felt pretty good about it. I basically saw all the locals go in one direction. And I was like, all right, well, so I'm going to go figure out what they're doing and go from there. Went, kind of watched where they had set up on stuff. They were setting up on islands of trees. I went, I found my own little island, got in there, caught 5 fish on a jackhammer in the first probably hour. And I was like, well, all right. So all I had to do the rest of the day was just try to, you know, flip once the sun got up. I tried to boat flip probably a 23-inch fish, maybe 24-inch fish, like a complete moron. I tried to boat flip it, and my line snapped like a complete idiot. That would have really helped me out a lot in the standings. But at the end of the day, I left Santee Cooper with a check, which I had never done. I never had a decent finish there. I'd never have anything even respectable from there. Or really any of the Carolinas, to be honest. You know, we went to Norman and Hartwell and Santee Cooper and before, and I've never River Bassin went to River Bassin over in Charlotte, and I had never done any good ever in the Carolinas. So to leave Santee Cooper, I felt like, you know, all right, we've already started early this year with the quality tournament in April. And from there on, it was just, you know, kind of bumping up. I finished in the top, I think 5th or 6th at Chickamauga with the Hobie. And I was like, oh, this is great. We're about to have, you know, it's about to be my time of the year. Bite's going to get tougher for a lot of people. And, you know, covering water is going to be in my favor. Still had a trip to Susquehanna, which I was absolutely stoked about. And if you would have told me Susquehanna would have been one of my worst finishes all year, I would have thought that I probably wouldn't have made TOC. But to kind of recover from that event, make a last minute decision to go to Wolf and Fox River, which ended up not even being in my limit, but I learned a lot when I was up there. And it was really good for me to kind of, you know, come back from Hobie Worlds and just go immediately back into a tournament and just try to get back into the swing of things. You know, here, in my own boat and doing all that. That was one of the most important finishes, you know, important events of the year for me, even though I didn't win any money. I didn't use that finish in any of my TOC stuff. But that was an important event for me, just for the season, for a mental aspect. It gave me a really good reset, and ever since that tournament, and having, just making mental mistakes on Saturday, with kind of basically fishing out of bounds accidentally. Um, Ever since that day, from Sunday of that tournament on, it's been crazy. Everywhere I've went, I've had a lot of fun. I've had a fantastic outlook on how I've been fishing. I've been a lot calmer. Everything, it seems to be, I've kind of stayed ahead with all the patterns and stuff. So if it's been very gradual through the season, but come away with a check at Santee Cooper was really big for me. And day one of Wisconsin at Wolf and Fox, to get that out of the way, and to recover and nearly scratch out a limit in the last 2 hours after I had to kind of reset and put myself in a better situation, and have an unbelievable day two there. That event, if I had to choose one event, was probably that one that was most important for my year.
Yeah, and it shows your progression. Kind of as an angler, when we look back at your last season and previous season, and again going back to that, kind of like unfairly treated after the AOY and what you've done this year. I mean, I think people are people. And I'm guilty of it too. We kind of get caught up with who won the tournament, but there's a tournament within a tournament. It's not just about winning. It's about getting to the TOC. Sometimes it's about getting making the right decisions just to get you into getting good angle of the year points. Um, there's small victories for each one of us. It might be something like just getting into the top 10 is going to be my goal, and it. I've slowly learned that from one tournament to another, and I'll give you kind of like my perspective on it for those that are listening, and I'm sure you know this. For me, on the Lake Darnell, um, knowing that my first two tournaments at the Hobie B.O.S. and I only had three, we're not good enough for anything that I didn't even actually get AOY points. Um, and then I'm thinking either I need to be in the top three. If not, I'm not going to win. The last 3 hours, I made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to throw a net rig or a finesse type that was going to get me a 12, 13, 14-inch bass. I was really just going to throw what I thought and what in practice. And in day one, got me big bites was a jackhammer. I know I wasn't going to get a bite, but at that point, it's like this might cost me a limit, but a 12-inch bass is not gonna get me anywhere. It's just gonna get me maybe into the top 10, and maybe it's gonna catch me a check. But my goal was I want to get into a TLC, and I say that because that's I think is what's lost as a spectator. We look at it from a spectator standpoint as who won. We forget who's got nobody remembers who ended up in the second or third, but those positions are just as important because just like I was like um, if that same scenario would have happened to me on Toledo Bend, the first event of the season, you damn straight I would have just gone through a negrid or something. Give me a 12-inch bass, get
Get
me into
the
the
point.
top
Yeah.
15, and get the points. I'm not gonna worry about getting a win here. I can, there'll be other ones down the line, but being the last tournament and my last chance. So things again, there's a game within the game, and you've shown, proven, I think, to anyone that put a doubt or an asterisk on your AUY point that you're not an up and coming or the new guy or somebody that just came out of nowhere. Your your talent level matches your trophy case.
Yeah. You know, from now on, the goal is essentially to go to Worlds, and whatever happens along the way happens. Obviously, I want to win a regional event. I feel like I kind of got the monkey off my back with the state championship.
Yeah.
Because what most people don't realize when they hear Bass State Championship, they think, oh, it's just a bunch of guys from Tennessee. That event, it's going to sound wrong because I'm the one that won it, and this is going to sound not, like I'm hyping it up, but if you go and look at who was
Yeah.
fishing the tournament, that is there are regional events with Bassmaster regional events that have different events that did not have the quality of anglers that were at our state championship, and even Jay Wallen came down from Kentucky. We had a bunch of really good Georgia guys come up, and even from Alabama, because we have all these groups that are right around, like TVKA. They're right there in Chattanooga, so you have Georgia guys, Alabama guys, Tennessee guys that come up. There's a lot of really good anglers that came, guys from Mississippi. So you really had what felt a lot more like, there were guys from Virginia that had come down that fished Tennessee stuff. So, it was a regional event just as much as just about anything I fished this year outside of Hobie. So to come away with that and have, and it wasn't one of those things where it was a struggle win, like when I won the Georgia State Championship and I had like 155 inches in 2 days. Obviously, I won that and I'm a Georgia State champion, but I didn't like, it was so much of a struggle. It didn't feel like I had a good day.
Yeah.
Or 2 days. And it with the chick event, that was, I think, the best 2 day total I've ever put up ever in any tournament period. So to do that there and have so many really quality fish, and like I mentioned, me and Ewing are friends. We were actually in the same creek both days for that event. And we knew what each other were doing. We were giving each other room. We were giving each other space. The last coalfish I caught that really kind of made a big difference in that, I think it was literally my last keeper. I literally caught that right behind him. That this area was kind of teardrop shaped that we were fishing, and we were just kind of taking turns working our way around, clockwise and counterclockwise. And he had just fished that little area and swapped to the other side. And I come around the corner from fishing another little spot and fished across there. And he's like, I just had a blow up on that tree. And about that time, I mean, no more than he got that out of his mouth, I had one blow up on the frog and was lucky enough to, stay hooked up with it. So to kind of share that, even though it, to be there with your friend at the end of the day,
Yeah.
really cool to share that. Ewing caught a 10-pounder basically. Well, probably didn't weigh 10 pounds, but he caught a 25, which is, bigger than 95% of everybody that fishes kayak bass tournaments is going
Yeah.
to be. So to enjoy that, and spend that with him, and have somebody to share water with that you trust and you're friendly with, and you can be cordial to each other. That's about all you can ask for a weekend. I've went and picked Ewing up for Eufaula tournament. His motor blew up on his car, and I drove up to Carson Newman and picked him up, and we drove down to Eufaula together. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is, even, as we've talked already on this podcast about, hey, Ewing should have won this and that. And, a lot of people think that I was mad at Ewing's dad because Ewing's dad was one of the people that were making those posts about,
Yeah.
hey,
I saw that.
fun. I've talked to Todd, over different things, and, I'm not one of those people that harps on it and wants to draw that stuff out. I had a couple conversations with him, and that's fine and dandy. But as far as he goes, I mean, he's one of my boys. I mean, he's not my best friend, but we talk just about every day. So the amount of miles that we spent on the road, occasionally in the same house together. I'll go hang out with them at Carson Newman sometimes on occasion if I've got a tournament up that way. But there's no one that I would like to see win it. If you said, hey, you're going to finish second in AOY this year, who would I choose to win AOY? It would be Ewing. Ewing's an unbelievable fisherman. The kid is smart with electronics, probably anyone in the entire country. and that goes for bass boats or kayaks regardless. And when we're not fishing the same tournaments, we try to help each other out best we can within our realm of getting information within rules and stuff like that. So but there was nothing between us that was an issue as far as AOY last year, and he's up there with having a chance to win it this year. So there's really not anyone that's more consistent than he is. So hopefully he wins it, and I can walk up there and hold his hand up and tell him congratulations, and we can get a picture together.
Pass on the torch, right?
Yeah, pass the torch. There's no one else I'd rather pass it to than little brother E.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you that question, because I know it was kind of unfortunate, and I get it from as a father, from a father standpoint. It's there's a lot of pride. I've had this conversation with Fred Rambanes when we're talking about people that inevitably are going to put going to hate on Jackson's victory. Him being a great angler himself, and dealing with social media crap is different when when they attack your son.
Yeah.
In this case, I know that minor senior would. I just felt like I was sad to see the post, because I was like, there's I don't know him personally, but I was like, this had the potential to get really ugly when you considering the dynamics of father son, and then you being friends with them. But I do I do applaud his final say on it, on that. And then again, that was like a year ago, but he did made a post, I think it was on KBN group page, I can't remember, where he kind of like said, like, let's get this over with, and let's just realize Jordan Marshall is the rightful winner, and kind of apologized for the other posts and all that, and said, we accept, his win. So I'm happy that happened, that he did that. But yeah, I remember that. It's like, man, this got the potential to get really awkward really soon.
Another way I looked at it after talking to my dad, because my dad has my parents have Facebook too, and they're on those pages. They're not active. They like watching the live stuff, and when I get on there. But my dad would be texting me and being like, hey, did you see this, that? And one of the things that we had talked about, I'm a big baseball guy. Me and my dad both are, and we're big Yankees fans. And there's a quote, I don't remember if it's from Derek Jeter or who, but it was an all-time Yankee, and they were like, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Have people that boo you when you go other places, or vaguely that's the Jordan Marshall East Tennessee version of that. But when you're getting booed for doing things, and that you're doing the right thing, that was a really interesting aspect at it for me, just to kind of smile and laugh and kind of get caught up in it, because even as this walleye stuff happens, where people are
oh my god, yeah,
doing all that, and I don't really like bringing that crap up, but even in the kayak stuff, I was so paranoid when I realized I was in the wrong at Wisconsin at Wolf and Fox River. I called AJ and told him, I said, look, I said, this has happened. I'm out of bounds. I missed a sign. And I said, the signs are contradictory, but I said, this is the sign here. And I want to call before anything, before anyone can call. There's other people, and I want to, make this known. Because I was on the phone with my buddy when it happened, and he's like, man, just, go fish the rest of your day, and, you'll figure it out later, this and that. He said, if they're contradictory, they're contradictory. And I knew as soon as I saw that sign that I just could not, I couldn't look. I don't want to phrase this. I've been critical of people that like living in the gray area.
Yeah.
So I find myself in the gray area. That was the first thing that I wanted to make sure that it became an area where it was black and white. I did not like being in the gray area, because when it's anybody can have conversations about, oh, I would have done this, I would have done that, y'all should have handled that this way, and you
Yeah.
get armchair cowboys that are playing on Facebook, and when you find yourself in a gray area accidentally, at least for me, I did not like that feeling. So I handled it as quickly as I could. Called AJ, said, "Here's what's happening," and we had a conversation, and I nearly went home because I knew that people there had saw me out of bounds, even though all my fish had already been disqualified. They took everything off for Tourney X, and I had talked to AJ. I said, "Look, I don't know if I feel comfortable fishing." And he said, "Look, from an aspect of a tournament director, your fish are DQ'd. You're in correct water. You're fine now." And that was really a turning point in my season, because I literally went directly across from the boat ramp and had, 4 fish that were 17 inches, and in the last hour or so, and lost 2 more. And to you know golf is, or fishing is a lot like golf, where you can hit really good shots and your ball disappears. You can make really good cast and not catch a fish.
Yeah.
You can make really terrible cast and catch fish. Everybody's done it where they're hanging a bait off a tree and a fish gets it right there at the surface. And they're, constantly, there's fish that has a mouthful of trebles, and the hooks come out, and there's fish that everybody gets in the boat where it's like you're skin hooked and you get it in and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I land this fish? Or you net a fish and the hook comes out immediately. And you both of those are such, the reason I mentioned golf is I really enjoy playing golf. I'm not nearly as good at that as I am fishing. But to those, sports are so mental, and you have to have such, to steal a quote from Gerald Swindle, you have to have such a positive mental attitude to go through these events
Yeah.
at season start to finish, because you're going to have just stupid highs if you just keep doing this, and you're going to have just miserable lows. You're going to be
Yeah.
driving a tournament in the middle of the night, and it's going to be 1 o'clock in the morning, and you got to get back to work by 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever it be for everybody. But you're going to have just miserable where you just want to pull over and just start screaming and hollering and everything else. And I think ever since that event, I'm always leaning heavily on a first thing in the morning bite and just kind of improving. That's always how my best days go, is I catch them early and just kind of upgrade my baits to where I can kind of swing for bigger fish. And the quicker I can do that, the better off I've always been. So to take an event like that where I had quality fish, lost quality fish, I was really mad that day because I lost one of the biggest smallmouth I'd ever seen up there. And as a plot twist, I those fish wouldn't have counted anyway. Even if I landed the biggest smallmouth I think I've ever seen in person, it wouldn't have counted. So at the end of the day, is it a good thing I lost that smallmouth or a bad thing? It's probably a good thing, because I would have been way more tempted to do something wrong or try to make it through my day with doing this and that. So, everybody's put in different situations for a reason. And I think that's the reason I fished so well this, later part of the summer and early fall, because I have just fished with such a clean mindset of, hey, I'm in the TOC now. That's, my bare minimum goal for the season is to get to the TOC to have a chance to win one. I can fish however, and I've fished my strengths and held to it, and really have just fished with such, a clear conscience and open mind, and just kind of done what I wanted to. So I couldn't have asked for a better fall so far, and hoping to improve on that this weekend at Pickwick, to where I go somewhere that I'm really looking forward to going. I've got some history there, and just trying to keep the momentum going and train rolling. I mean, there's nothing more than most of us would rather do than to have a big blue Bassmaster trophy to come home with us from a tournament. So I think it being a 2-day tournament, there was a BFL there this past weekend. I'm sure those guys sore lipped a lot of fish. If you look at the results, they had a really, really tough event. I think somebody cut a check with like 4 fish in 2 days, which is it's miserable. So to go somewhere where I feel fairly confident going, if there's just not a whole lot of people there, I feel confident that I can go down there and cut a check and hopefully, get a blue trophy with, to come home with me, because that would be just unbelievable to carry that much momentum into TOC and hopefully the KFL championship, ahead. That's going to be on Chickamauga, close to home. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. It's my time of the year to feel like it's my time to make some money and make some moves in our world. So I've just got to kind of keep a positive mental aspect, not get too full of myself, and just go and fish and have fun and see what happens.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned, because you mentioned the gray area. When you're in the gray area, sometimes you can feel like, honestly, and each one of us is, you can be tempted to make the wrong decision. And there's, there's not enough money in the world that's more valuable than each of our
Peace of mind.
peace of mind and our names. Like, there's no amount of money that's more important than my name on it. And I can get away with cheating. That I don't care if anybody knows it. I know it.
Right.
And speaking to that, one of the best advices that I got, it's not related to fishing at all. It's just something in my personal life that I went through as a young man that made stupid decisions. A friend of mine told me, it's like, listen, there's the line where it divides right from wrong. And you're mostly on the right side, but you tread too close to that line. And every now and then, it's like a cliff. If you keep walking close to that cliff, even if you're on the right side of the cliff, guess what? You can trip and all of a sudden fall down the cliff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened to me. It's like, you got to stop thinking about how close can I get to the cliff without falling, and stop thinking how far away can I get from the cliff.
Yeah. So
to avoid that.
Real quick, I grew up in church, and one of my youth leaders used to have a fantastic saying with teaching us, and a really simple aspect was, if you hang around the mud hole long enough, you'll end up with mud on you.
Yeah.
And
That's a good way.
that's a really simple aspect of, and that goes for a lot of stuff, whether it's fishing or what you're doing in your day-to-day life. But that's a really good way to look at things. That's simple, that literally everyone can understand, because I understood it when I was 12 years old, and it holds just as much weight now and showing up to a fishing tournament as it did then.
Definitely. Jordan, I've had you for an hour. I really appreciate it. I wanted to ask you one more question. Then I want you to give you a few minutes to kind of give shout outs to whoever you want to give a shout out to, whether it's friend, family, or a company that sponsors you. Going TOC, Cattle Lake, and I'm sure you're aware, and I don't want to psych you out, but anything, but we've seen like what, especially the current leader Cody Milton has done in Cattle Lake throughout the years, not just recently, but throughout the years. What's your confidence level going into that that body of water when Cody's ahead and he really owns that lake? I mean, for you personally, how do you approach that?
So, without getting into everybody that's ahead of me in the AOY standings, no matter what they say, the person to beat, not only is whether he was 7th in AOY or leading AOY like he is Cody.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, Cody absolutely loves that place. It's one of his favorite places to fish. He's got a fantastic track record to say there. Guillermo the same way.
Yeah.
Guillermo done really well, and obviously being that close to home, that's he's one of those people to watch out for. So we had touched on the AOY thing. I'm in the same position I was last year. They changed the point scenario just a little bit, which makes it tougher to move up. And then you have a lake that suits some of the guys ahead of me really well. I like fishing that time of the year. I like, fishing in November. I like the temperatures. I like the way the fish set up. I'm not a super great cypress, flooded cypress guy. I've tried to spend more time on Santee Cooper this year. What people don't know is I went down there for a KFL event, really struggled, and went back the next day. I should say the next week, and went back. I drove down just to fish Santee Cooper just another day, and did terrible as well. I'm not trying to hide it, but I've tried to spend more time on those cypress fisheries this year because I don't have cypress in East Tennessee. That's no secret. We've got a lot of stuff to fish here with small rivers, small lakes, big lakes, big lakes that have small fish, small lakes that have big fish, and grass fisheries and current fisheries and highland lakes and all that. And I think that's why you have a lot of really good fishermen that come from this area, is because a lot of guys learn on a lot of different lakes. And it's no secret that there's not a lot of cypress here, and that's something that I have historically struggled with. So I've spent a small amount of time on Caddo. I've never had one of those crazy days on Caddo like a lot of those guys have had, and Caddo's known for. But I'm always interested to get on a fishery at a different time of year, especially one that kind of fits what I like doing a lot better. Obviously that it's no secret if I'm going to be successful at Caddo, it's going to be me throwing a lot of jackhammer for 3 days and throwing a lot of top water and stuff like that. So I've got a couple days to practice for that event, maybe 3. I'm still trying to work that part out with work, but I'm excited to get to somewhere that has really quality fish, and just try to break down a fishery like that's fish is so large for the size of fishery it is. It fishes really large, and it really should fish large with 50 people there. So excited to get down there, excited to hopefully catch a giant fish. It's still fishing. Everybody can have a good day and everybody can have a bad day. So the most important thing is go down there and give 150%, because that's what I say a lot of times. There's no one that's going to put more effort into things than I am. A lot of guys have heard that I'll put in a bunch of different places and cover a lot of water and drag kayaks long ways to get to different ramps. So there's no one that's going to put more effort in that week than I am, and that's do everything I can to do my part and just see where the chips fall at the end of it. Because if I do my absolute best, then I have nothing to complain about.
Definitely. We definitely wish you the best. I think it's safe to say that what you've done so far was this year, not just the Hobie B.O.S, but Bass Nation locally and both nationally for Bassmaster or Bass Nation Kayak Series, is shut the hell up out of the critics and the naysayers and everybody else that question your talents or your level as an angler. But still, we wish you the best at the TOC. Like to see you at the very best. Like to see, at the very least, we like to see you get your full 3 limits and see where it racks up against an amazing fishery with amazing lineup of 50 anglers. So we definitely wish you the best. I wanted to give you a few minutes to thank anybody you want to thank, companies, personal people in your life. So go ahead.
Absolutely. I mentioned a jackhammer just a second ago. Everybody knows I throw a jackhammer a lot. A jackhammer is a big part of my arsenal. It's something I'm really comfortable. I rely on a lot. It catches fish all over the world. I mean, we caught perch and pike in Sweden on it. So that's one of those things I've always got tied on. So shout out to Z-Man for making such an awesome product that so many people rely on. Cash and rods. I know this will be kind of a week old by the time it gets out, but Cash and Rods just unveiled a whole new rod series today, called the Element. It's the
You good? Oh, you good?
Not to step on any toes. I know your big sponsor is Douglas, but
no, that's fine, man.
Cash and Rods come out with a fully American made rod. That's the best price point. It's just a little over $100, and it's a lot of people, when they start handling Cash and Rods, the first thing they notice is the carbon fiber grip, and just full disclosure, the first time I picked one up, I didn't like the grip when I was holding it in the store. And when I actually got one and started using it, you could feel so much more. I mean, with the jackhammer, you can feel every last nick and blade as it comes back, and it really kind of improved the way I kind of power fish. but I think that the new Element series is going to get a lot of guys in, holding cash and rods, and that's what it's all about is getting an American-made product that has cork grips that where everybody kind of traditionally likes the cork grips, and it's still the same quality blank, and we're cash and we're excited about that. So MTech Lithium. To the guys that kind of follow me a lot, I put 25 miles on that battery this weekend on that Newport. So that's for a power fisherman at this point in the game with kayaks to not have a motor. And I was never a super big motor fan until the last year or so when I get one, and I try not to use Game Changer a whole lot, and I won't now, but it kind of really opened up how I kind of practice for these Hobies and really break down a fishery when it's when I'm allowed to use it. So shout out to MTech for being fantastic. They say the best anglers in the world use MTech, and if you look at who's on MTech's staff, whether it's bass boats or kayaks, I mean they've got a really good claim to that. So I just got on board with the Dugout team. Dugout's got an unbelievable team. Yep. Top to bottom, all the way across the country of unbelievable kayak anglers, and I'm really blessed to be a part of that now. So, oh my gosh, this Revo sunglasses, they've been super fantastic. I got another pair when I won the state championship, so I've got like 3 pairs that I wear. I've got a pair I wear to work, a pair I keep in my truck when I'm driving, and a pair that I wear when I'm on the water. So. Shout out to Revo for making unbelievable sunglasses. And I think that's probably going to do it for me.
Well, I mean, you've really earned all those sponsors, and congratulations again for everything you've accomplished this year, last year, and again, we wish you the best. Excited to see what's going up. Good luck at the Bass Nation Kayak Series up in Pickwick. Is it right?
Pickwick.
Yeah. Are you already qualified for the? What do they call it? The championship, I guess.
Yeah, the championship. I got qualified at Chickamauga when I won. So, just a little short kind of backstory on that. The everybody knows by now that the top 10 get to walk across the stage.
Yeah.
The stage to the Bassmaster Classic, to my understanding, is going to be at Thompson Bowling Arena. Thompson Bowling Arena is 20 minutes from where I'm sitting right now.
Nice.
Probably 25 minutes. I've seen crazy amounts of basketball games there. I've seen Bassmaster Classics there, and see weigh-ins. That's, where the number of people that I know that will be there to have that opportunity if I can get in the top 10. I almost run out of things to say talking about it because it excites me that much to have the possibility to do that. So obviously, I've got to focus on TOC, right? And all that stuff this fall. But if I can make something happen and get in the top 10 and walk across the Bassmaster Classic stage in what is essentially my hometown, and to have the biggest stage in bass fishing to be here, and to have an opportunity to do that is humbling. And we're 6 months out from the tournament, and I smile thinking about just the possibility of it happening. So that would be amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. It's at Chickamauga where we'll be fishing, and Lord knows I've spent an unbelievable amount of time on that lake the last few years. So there's a lot of parts that are there to make something really special. So I just gotta focus up, do my best, be prepared, and just 120%, 150%, 180%. But
definitely,
that's on the radar. So,
well, we wish you the best in that tournament as well. I have to ask you real quickly, and I thought this is going to be the last. This is definitely going to be the last question. You already have more inside knowledge, I know, with your relation Brian Lambert and the guys at KBN about the changes in Bassmaster Kayak Series doing. I'm not going to ask you about the changes because I'll wait till that comes officially. But as far as what are you excited of what Bass Nation Kayak Series is going to be rolling up next year?
Yes. Short version, yes. Very, very, very excited. I, what little I have been able to be kind of brought,
Privileged too. Yeah.
privileged to hear. I'm excited. I was not going to fish any bass events after the fork event, not because of the weather and stuff, but because of just different aspects of how bass kind of handled us as a
Yeah.
community. I didn't appreciate,
No, I totally agree.
and that's a long story. But the short version is yes. All of my biggest concerns with bass have or will be at least not necessarily taken care of, but addressed. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what all comes out. Obviously, I don't know everything. I probably don't even know very much at all in the grand scheme of things. But as far as what I do know, I am excited about it. I'll kind of leave it with that.
No problem. That's good enough. So with that, we thank everyone that made it this far of the podcast. Thank you, Jordan Marshall, again for joining us and taking the time. We've talked for an hour and 15 minutes. So I really appreciate you taking time out for this. For those
I,
out there, I appreciate you, man. For those out there listening, if you're gonna be on the water, wear your PFDs. If you're gonna have a couple of beers while you're out fishing, just please, I can't stress this enough. Be mindful, be responsible, and make sure you make it back home to your loved ones. That being said, have a great day. Have a great week, everyone. Congratulations to whoever won the Bass Nation Kayak Series. Might just be this week's host. So, Jordan Marshall. So, if that's it, we'll have him back again. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.